What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today's video is going to be kind of a little bit different than my regular videos. We are going to kind of freeball and talk a little bit and clear some things up and do some addressing. I do these every once in a while to keep everybody on the same page, keep everybody, at a cohesive thing. Now, the main goal of my channel here is to just afford you guys with knowledge, right? And whether you use that knowledge, that's totally up onto you. Whether that knowledge is applicable to you and your dog, that is for you to decide and for you to kind of go, yes, I need this information. It pertains to me. No, I don't need that information. I'm going to look over that. Because what I don't want to do is I don't want to have a guy go out here and do every single solitary thing that I say, no matter what kind of dog he has. Because that's one huge thing that plays a huge role in this whole thing is every dog is different. And everything looks different on a different kind of dog, right? So, and every training technique does a different thing for a dog, right? So we need to pay attention and we need to know our dog and what we need and figure that out, right? So that is one huge, gigantic nugget of information that I can impart to you guys. When you're watching my content, take what you need and take what's applicable to you. And that is on your own judge, right? But at the end of the day, we need to focus on the main goal. And the main goal is we can cut our dog off and the dog runs out there, strikes a track, trees a coon. Right? That is the main goal of the whole point of coon hunting. And that looks like different things for different guys. Some guys cut the dog, get in the truck and wait on them. Some guys dump them out of the box. Some guys don't walk into their dog until it's treed. Some guys follow. Some guys walk, hunt their dogs. Some guys put their dogs on scent and cut them that way. So we have all these different ways to actually coon hunt. But at the end of the day, the ultimate goal remains the same, and that is just tree coons. And we have to put ourselves in our own shoes and our own preference and our own hunt styles to derive what we need from a dog. And one thing that I wanted to talk about in this video is communication, right? So one thing that is the same across all breeds of dogs, all dogs in general, is the way that we communicate with dogs, right? And it is very reactive. It is a very much, I do this, you do that. You do this, I do this. If you do this, I give you that. If you do this, I punish you for this, right? It is a very cut and dry communication. And that's how we communicate with dogs, and that's how we communicate effectively with dogs, right? And one thing that is kind of jumbled up in all of this, especially with the Coonhound breed, when we are hunting dogs, okay? So when we are hunting a dog has to be able to function without a person in its ear, giving it every little command. The dog has a lot of work on its own part that needs to be done, and the dog has to function and be able to make its own decisions and choose what it does and what it does not need to be doing at whatever particular time. It is virtually its own thing out there, right? It's doing its own thing. And if we have a dog that we have to direct every single step of the way, this way, that way, this way, we have to teach it up and down and just teach it how to walk, basically, and just keep it up on this path. It's ultimately, it's the worst off that we are in the department of how good or bad our dog is. A dog has to be taught more to think on its own is a dog that is going to give you more problems because you have to teach it basically how to think. A dog that can think on its own, a dog that can make its own choices and go out there and be an individual and get a job done is a dog that is going to be way better off for everybody, and no matter what department it is. Now, we can get into talking about forcing a dog to make choices without making it so obvious or without being a super negative thing. And that's kind of what I want to talk about here in this little communication part of the video, is that it's easy to communicate things to dogs once we understand how that relationship works, how that communication is. We can force a dog to make a choice by eliminating all other options. If the dog has no option but to choose one thing, it's up to the dog when it's going to choose it. And that's kind of how we're going to push the dog in this direction of go tree coons, is we're just not going to give it any other option but to go do that. We're not going to put it in any other situation besides to go tree coon. We're not going to train it in any other way besides to go tree coon. We're not going to hinder it. We're not going to get in its way. We're going to leave the dog be, not scold on it, not whip on it, not shock on it, but we can force a dog in a direction by eliminating options. And we can make them only have one choice to pick, but it's up to them to pick it. And once they pick it, they've picked it, and you're better off, right? So that's another way that we can communicate a dog. We can communicate with a dog without scolding, without whipping, without doing this thing. We can just eliminate options. Nope, we're not going to take you in the yard. We're only going to take you in the woods. Nope, we're not going to walk you on a leash. We're only going to cut you loose in the woods. Are only going to be on a leash in the woods. Nope, we're not doing this anymore. We're only going to do this. We're only going to cut here. We're only going to do this. We can eliminate possibilities, and we can eliminate options to force a dog to do something because it has no other option to, because you're taking away all the choices. So that's one big part of communication that we can use in our advantage. Now, some guys are super control freaks. This will hurt you, okay? This will hurt you in the long run, especially in the department of training coons and having a hunting dog. Because if we're control freaks, we don't want it to run in the wrong direction. We don't want it to sit the wrong way. We don't want it to bark the wrong way. We don't want to tree this way. We don't want to do this. We have all these things that we don't want the dog doing, and we're only allowing it to do one thing through means outside of eliminating options that are just kind of like, I'm not going to cut you there anymore. I'm going to cut you over here. I'm only going to take you hunting on these days. I'm only, just doing simple things like that is way easier to control than it is to be very hands-on, right? So being severely hands-on with a dog, overly hands-on, there's a line that needs to be drawn at some point. And I've said this in a lot of videos. We have to leave the drive intact on our dog. Being overly too much obedience work, too much of this, too much of that, too much negative experience can cause a dog to not go, can cause a dog to not be so natural. Ability dog can cause you a lot more headaches than we can think of. Another thing here that I wanted to talk about is we have to be very vigilant and very on the lookout for things that we are doing that is causing the dog to give us a problem, right? And this is ripples, right? So they ripple out and then they come back to you at some point in time. That's kind of the way that it goes. And if we teach a dog one thing and then later down the road we get another issue, is it because we did something here? Is it because we broke the dog off of this and then now this issue arose because of that? And there's so many of these, especially in hunting, that every issue that you have can just about be drawn back to something that you have done. That's why I say, less hands on the pot, less people get burnt. In that sense, more hands off training, the less that we can train a dog, the better off the dog is. The better dog that we have, and the better off that we're going to be, and the less ripples that we're going to have come back and haunt us later in training. So there is another thing that I wanted to kind of address here on the channel. I am fully aware that this is just a YouTube video, and I'm hunting here, particularly where I hunt, and I have my experience where I have my experience. You guys hunt in different states, different locations, different weathers, different terrains, different whatever, different conditions, have different dogs. I fully, completely understand that. There is a lot of things that you can derive off of my channel that it can be very cut and dry. That can be, it is this way definitively. This will do this for your dog definitively, just because the sheer fact that this is how dog psychology works. This is how dog training in general works. This is just the process, how communication, right? So that's kind of why I touched on the communication in the beginning. There is some things that you guys can find on the channel that will be very one and done, this way, that way. This does this makes this result. There is some of that stuff on the channel. You just got to be able to find it and figure it out, right? So there is some of that on there. Some of the stuff that I do is I do not try to be so direct when I'm talking about this stuff, because I don't want to cause somebody a hardship. Because it's very, very easy to do. As I've just explained, we can put ripples on a dog. It's very easy to cause somebody hardship by, number one, not communicating properly or effectively, right? Maybe different lingos from different places, things like that. So that's why I spend a lot of time covering things from a lot of different angles. That's why videos tend to get long. They tend to get long-winded. I tend to use a lot of analogies to try to, resolve any, language barrier or lingo barrier that we may have. So that's one thing that you're going to get from me a lot, is a lot of angles from one subject. So I do that to communicate effectively with you guys. I mean, I just spent however long just explaining that, right? So I don't want to be misinterpreted, and I don't want to feed bad information, and I don't want to have cross wires. So if there's ever anything that you guys need cleared up, or anything that I've said that you guys want clarification on, feel free to drop in the comments. I'll be more than happy to clear up what I mean by what on any level, right? So there is also that. So we can talk a little bit about the differences that we're going to have in coonhound training, right? In the coonhound world, in the coon hunting world, we have a lot of what I call as fingers crossed. Okay, so the fingers crossed is going to be when our training is in the dog's court. Okay, so, and that's kind of what it is. It's a volley back and forth between you and the dog. I feed him this, he went and done that, but it came back to me in this way. Now I need to remix, readjust, and then you guys can kind of stay on the same path and communicate in that sense and in that direction. So there's half and half, I would say, and half and half for a good balance. The more that you can be in this fingers crossed stage and your dog still does it, the better off you are, right? The more that we can stay out of the dog's business and hands off on the dog and be in this fingers crossed, like, oh, he's gonna figure it out this time. He's gonna do it on his own. I'm not gonna have to teach him this. The more times that your dog can perform, and when the ball's in his court, the better dog that you have, right? It's just gonna be that way, and the easier time that we're gonna have training that dog. Okay, so and that's why I say we need to strike a balance in this sense, and we need to be vigilant and be careful and be aware of what information we're volleying over to the dog, because it can come back in a way that we just do not like, right? It can cause issues. So yeah, that fingers crossed stage, there's a lot of this stuff that is in the dog's court. We can take and force a dog, like I was talking about with communication, eliminating options and kind of really limiting down what we can get out of what we're doing at that moment, and kind of nudge a dog in that way. But the dog has to make a choice. It's in the dog's court to do certain things. And when we are going back and forth, and okay, it's on me to train, it's on him to perform, it's on me to train, it's on him to perform. He performed it, now let's move on to the next training. He performed that, now let's move on to the next little bit. And we need to stay in this way. But what we have to understand is when we're in this stage, there's not a whole lot that we can do. There's not a whole lot that we can do for a dog when the ball is in the dog's court. And some things that we can do is keep it in the woods. Okay, fingers crossed, put him in the woods. Fingers crossed, put him in the woods. Fingers crossed, put him in the woods. And this is kind of where we need to keep the dog. If we're needing a dog to give us something, let's say we need a dog to hit its first strike, it'll never hit a first strike if we don't keep it in the woods, right? It can never hold up its end of the deal. It can never show you that it can do something if we don't put it in the woods. So we have to sit there with fingers crossed. He's going to strike tonight. He's going to strike tonight. He's going to strike tonight. And this can go on for months. This can go on for a year. This can go on for, however long it takes that dog to go ahead and do that, right? Same thing with trees. Same thing with performing something over and over again. Getting a consistent process put in a dog. And, I talk about the process. I'll touch on that a little bit. And that is the circle of life and how the communication works. And that is very reactive. I do this, he does that. He does this, I do this. And it is a very much so a, positive reinforcement is kind of what they call it, or negative reinforcement, right? So this would be praising and punishing for actions and reactions. And that's how we train dogs. So some of this stuff is very cut and dry and simple that way. I already said that, but I just want to reinforce that sense. Okay, so some of the questions that I get are kind of hard to answer because it's this, right? So it's like, just cross your fingers and hope that he puts it together now. There's not a whole lot we can do to force that along. And I wanted to kind of make this video to keep everybody on the same page, keep all my subscribers, have that fire in them. This is our goal. This is what we're shooting for. And there's a million ways to get there. and there's a million ways to mess it up. So we got to watch how we do it, and we got to pay attention and get things done. But having a good time, hunting with good people, hunting with good dogs, getting in the woods, and opening our eyes. And this is one thing that I really wanted to force home for a lot of you guys, is that maybe some of you guys already are aware of this. Some of you guys probably might not be aware of this. And this is something that happens to all of us at some point in time, unless we were just afforded a very elaborate start to coon hunting, right? So being in a box, okay? So this is something that is very hard to overcome, okay? So it's kind of like, let's say that we're living in a cardboard box, and that's all we've ever known our whole entire life. We've never seen a house. We've never seen a mansion. We've never seen a castle. We lived in a cardboard box. But to ourselves, we think, oh, I love my cardboard box. My cardboard box is the best cardboard box that I have ever seen. I've never seen a better cardboard box in my entire life. And then all of a sudden we go out and we see a giant castle, and we go, oh my goodness, was I so wrong? And that's what that's kind of what I talk about, being in this box in our training. Okay, so if we're in a box in our training and we're closed off and we're closed-minded, we will never have the epiphany, right? We'll never have the, oh, he's not that good, or oh, he's actually a pretty good dog. So a lot of times what can happen is we can be severely strict on a dog that's not a bad dog, or we can be very lenient on a dog that is a horrible dog. And we just don't have that information to judge against because we live in this box. So get outside your guys' box, get out there, hunt, get out there, see dogs, get out there and just feel around, put your feelers out. And one thing that I wanted to mention here, and it kind of lends its hand to this little bit of getting out of your box information. Okay, so I can be a super particular individual, right? Let's say that I'm a hunter, and I will only back a dog if it does this, 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 this. You know, I can be that way. I will go through more dogs than the next guy. I will be able to only train this kind of dogs. I will only be able to have information on these kind of dogs. And if I'm a guy that is this way, and then I'm getting asked questions, I'm only relaying information from this kind of dog, right? So if we are a more open-minded individual and we go out there and we try our hardest, no matter what the dog is, no matter how bad or good or ugly that the dog is or how it performs, and we can find a certain attribute in a dog that can be nurtured and trained on and pushed and get a dog to get there, whether we care for how the dog hunts or looks or whatever, we will have more information, we'll have more ability and more accurate kind of judge on everything in the coon hunting world. But you know what, guys, I'm going to wrap that video up. I really hope you guys can take what you need out of this video and bring us all together a little bit closer. But Oklahoma, I hope this answered your question. This video was kind of for you. The fingers crossed thing, that's kind of what I'm going to tell you is I've never personally even been to Oklahoma, so I couldn't even tell you what the coon hunting looks like out there. But if you have a dog that will run drags and will treat cages and will treat coons at the house or drags, when we get them in the woods, we got to fingers crossed that they're going to make it. We can only lob them the easiest of woods, the fullest of woods, the easiest of running that we can possibly do. And the more frequent, the better. And we could just pop in on woods constantly and try to get a dog to find something easy enough that it's going to go on tree, or interesting enough that it's going to go on tree. But that's going to wrap that video up, guys. Thank you for stopping in. Don't forget to hit that like, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Keep them treed.